What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the KBR Sports YouTube channel, the best sports YouTube channel of your 24-hour day. Thanks for tuning in to today's KBR Sports YouTube video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Today's gonna be a funny video, man. If you guys know, this video is being recorded right after the results of the Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. And guys, we have a hell of a video to get into, so make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe before we jump into it, and make sure you hit the post notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. But guys, what a freaking game, man. That game was wild. It was crazy from start to finish. This is what the NBA playoffs are all about. This is the best time of the year for the NBA. This is when the NBA reaches its peak in terms of popularity. This is when it's dominating the ratings, even though it's literally lined up with the NHL playoffs and other stuff like that. This is when the NBA is at its best, because we get games like this where you can't even imagine, like, the impossible happens, even though it's like it's totally possible, but it's still impossible type stuff going on. And I can't, like, let's just dive into the game, guys, because the Suns somehow from the jaws of defeat, literally, the Suns looked like it was a wrap. It looked like it was done. Most people were saying, okay, it's time to start heading for the exits once Paul George hit this jumper to get them up. Let me not get ahead of myself, but there's so many storylines we had throughout this game, talking about Cameron Payne. It's crazy because in the lieu of Chris Paul being out and missing these first two games due to COVID protocol, it's amazing the fact that Cameron Payne has literally stepped up and been a legitimate backup for the Suns in this time period. And when we're looking at his game, he led the Suns in scoring with 29 points on 50% shooting, 12 of 24 shots, 2 of 8 from deep, 3 of 4 free throws. He had 9 assists and 0 turnovers. That sounds like literally a Chris Paul stat line. 9 assists and 0 turnovers. That's something Chris Paul would do. And those type of things, those type of contributions along the way is huge in making these kind of games come to full fruition and a team be able to close out in games like this when you're getting contributions from guys like that. It alludes to somewhat what I talked about in my last video, the super team video, talking about depth and how much it matters when a team has depth from top to bottom as a part to being just built around key or main superstars from a super team. The main stars you would normally acknowledge on this team would be guys like Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and now Deandre Ayton is starting to try and make a trend for himself in that direction. This postseason, he's played like an all-star caliber player. Playing like it right now in the postseason, we got to see it come to fruition also in the regular season. That's when we're used to solidify it. Like, think about Jamal Murray last year in the postseason. Jamal Murray went crazy, and he was literally balling like a superstar, not even just an all-star, a legit superstar. But then we came into this regular season, and it tailored off a good amount, and he wasn't in that superstar conversation that much anymore. It was mainly Jokic. But if DeAndre Ayton can take this postseason, build on it, and take it into next year, oh my gosh, because the guy has been a monster, man. Like, he's been so good for them in this postseason. He went up against Anthony Davis and honestly he played better than Anthony Davis did in that first round. Went head to head with him, went head to head with Jokic. He went head to head with those guys, but he held his own in terms of combating Jokic. Of course, Jokic is going to put up his numbers and be able to dominate in his own way, in a way that you would have thought DeAndre Ayton would kind of fade off into the Rudy Gobert way, where he's not really putting up offensive numbers. DeAndre Ayton was making Jokic work and combating him and putting numbers back up against him. And now you're seeing it in this series where he's actually punishing the Clippers for trying to go to that small lineup that they were going to against the Jazz, that essentially forced the Jazz to got Rudy Gobert exposed for how he can't guard on the perimeter. Now on the other side, because DeAndre Ayton is actually an offensively efficient big, when they come back on the other side, he's doing things that are punishing guys, like getting offensive rebounds, being able to get extra possessions, and also be able to score out of the post, because he's actually offensively adept at playing out of the post and hitting post-up shots, hitting jump shots and spacing and stuff like that. He's a legitimate, perfect piece for this team. It's crazy how well this team is built. And if you just think about it from a year ago to now being at this point, you really have to give credit to the Suns organization for how well built this team is. And the Suns are a legit team that you have to play all 48 minutes well enough to beat them. You can't try and make a run last second to try and steal a game from them. You have to legitimately play all 48 minutes really well to fully win a game against this team as we saw tonight. And it's crazy because you saw how close the Clippers were to winning this game. And I know that we're going to be here different talk shows talking about it. Who won the game? Who won? Like, what was the storyline with this game? Did the Suns win the game or did the Clippers lose the game? If you're asking me, man, I think the Clippers lost it. I think the Clippers, this was the Clippers game. They were low-key stealing the game from the Suns, but they lost it because they had things like the officiating going their way. For one, there was an offensive foul called on Devin Booker where he throws his arm back when he's going by Patrick Beverley. It catches Patrick Beverley. Obviously, he flails some, and it did catch him, but he flails some to exacerbate it and get the officials to call it. Then there was another occurrence where there's a controversial call that happens, and well, I'll get into how that call affects the whole scheme of how this fourth quarter went down. But I mean, ultimately, man, it comes down to how the Clippers lost the fourth quarter. A lot of it comes down to Paul George. Sad to say, and it comes down to Paul George when in all actuality, this is the sad part, because in all actuality, this team was only in this game because of Paul George. Literally, Paul George is the only reason why this team even had a chance in this game, which is the sad part. And when we're looking at Paul George's fourth quarter numbers, Paul George in the fourth quarter, he was 3 of 5 from the free throw line, and he had 2 assists for 5 points. So he created 5 points off of 2 assists. He was 3 of 5 field goals. He had 1 turnover. He had 10 points and 2 rebounds. So in totality, he had counted for 15 Clipper points in the fourth quarter. And then really at one point, Paul George, when they initially take the lead in the fourth quarter, Paul George, he splits 2 players and he gets to the rim for a layup to take the lead with 30.9 seconds left in the game. And at that point, I was like, wow. I even tweeted, I was like, what an impressive Paul George with a split. Like, I couldn't believe he split that double team like that and was so aggressive getting to the rim. Then Devin Booker comes back at him, who now a lot of people are comparing Devin Booker to Kobe Bryant. Devin Booker comes back at Paul George. If you guys actually want to see a video about that, comparing Devin Booker and Kobe Bryant, let me know in the comments. I'll see if I can do something about that. Devin Booker comes back at Paul George, comes back on the other end, scores his bucket, and his jumper takes the lead back with 27 seconds left. And then Paul George comes back again at him with a jumper, and he hits the jumper to take the lead with 21.8 seconds left. Now, this leads into the controversial moment where I talked about where Patrick Beverley deflects the ball out of bounds as it grazes Devin Booker's hand. And a lot of people on social media were getting up in arms because they're like, well, technically, Patrick Beverley hits the ball out of bounds, so that should be off Patrick Beverley, but it grazed Devin Booker's hand. In practicality of the rule, whoever the ball touches last, the ball is off of. So that means that the Clippers now get the ball and it's overturned with 9.3 seconds left. And with that being the case, now the Clippers get the chance to seal the game because they're going to have to get, not even necessarily seal the game, but they get the chance to pretty much put the game out of reach with Paul George going to the free throw line, who is the person that you would want going to the free throw line in this situation. And then it just ends up becoming a thing where he goes to the free throw line, misses the first, and you're just like, oh my gosh. I saw him miss the first. I was like, there's no way he's going to miss the second one. There's no way. There's no way. He's had the last few games without Kawhi. Paul George has been that dude. He's been clutch. There's no way he's going to miss the second one. Misses the second one. He misses the second one. And I'm like, what? When he missed the second one, I was like, oh my gosh. It was 0.8 seconds left. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, if they're gonna get anything, it has to be something going at the rim. I just looked, I was like, if they score this and steal the game away from the Clippers, this is gonna be hung over Paul. It doesn't even matter, because I felt bad for Paul George to some degree because of the fact that he gets so piled on. It reaches levels that is almost uncomfortable sometimes, especially when you hear him talk about his mental health and stuff like that. But then there's also the caveat where Paul George has also done the thing where he pronounces himself to be playoff P. He does the thing where he talks about Damian Lillard, and he goes back and forth with Damian Lillard on social media, even though Damian Lillard is the guy that knocked him and Russell Westbrook out of the playoffs the year beforehand and stuff like that. And he's the guy that essentially left OKC when he just said he was committed to the team to go and join Kawhi Leonard, forced his way out with the trade. So, you know, that's the same Paul George. And so it's like you feel bad, but then, and he gave himself his own nickname, Playoff P. And it's like, how do you call yourself Playoff P? If you're going to be Playoff P, you got to show up and be clutch in the moments that matter most. Especially, it's not like it was one of those situations where with Kevin Durant, he was clutch. And then we just were like, dude, he is out of gas. Like he did 48 points type of gas. Like it was regulation. And then if his foot wouldn't have been so damn big, he would have literally ended the series. And then they go into overtime and he's burnt. It wasn't that type of thing for Paul George. So it was like, dude, you missed 2, and it's free throws. It's free throws. That's the thing. It's free throws. That's the biggest thing, man. It's like 2 free throws, PG. That's tough.
That's tough. That's tough. That's tough.
When you miss 2 free throws and then they go back and then you just see the play happening. It's a beautiful play that Monty Williams had. And he said they didn't work on it. He said it's a play they did not work on. And you see them do the flare screen for Cam Johnson, and then you see them do another stagger screen where it looks like Nicholas Batum is actually worried about Devin Booker flaring out to catch a mid-range jumper, and then he goes with Devin Booker instead of trying to make sure Deandre Ayton can't get this tip. And Ivica Zubac gets caught on that screen by Devin Booker. Credit to him, because that screen was great. And then Jay Crowder with the perfect lob for Deandre Ayton to throw it down and essentially become the hero of the game. Because if he doesn't throw that in the right spot, I don't, you know, he could throw that too far out right, he could throw it too far out left, and we were having an entirely different conversation, man. But this was a whole crazy ordeal, man. I gave you guys the stats about Paul George's fourth quarter. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, man. I know he's going to get butchered for this game. He's going to be the talk of all sports talk shows. People have been talking about Ben Simmons the whole time, but Paul George isn't at Ben Simmons level, of course, nowhere even near in terms of ineffectiveness. But when you miss 2 free throws and you're playoff P, that hits different, man. That hits different. But guys, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Of course, guys, I appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Make sure you guys go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Make sure you guys go ahead and make sure you hit the post notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I'm curious where the Clippers are going to go from here. They come back against the Mavericks. They were down 2-0. Against the Jazz, they were down 2-0. But a lot of those games, some of those games they had Kawhi Leonard for as well to help them come back. And now it's just these guys. And this is a gut punch to try and come back down from 2-0 from. But if anybody's shown they can do it, it's the Clippers. So we'll have to see if they do it. When Kawhi coming back, Chris Paul is most likely going to play in game 3. So we'll have to see if this goes. But guys, leave a like, comment on the video. Of course, share it with a friend. Appreciate all the support, guys. And join the Discord. The Discord link is down in the description. And until next time, guys, I'm out.